So everybody remembers this guy. This is Senator Charlie Scott from Wyoming.
Boo.
Boo, yeah. And
Senator
he was the guy that said, like, why not? Why can't we shoot a drone out of the sky if it's over our property? So this is part of the aerial trespass bill that was shot down recently.
Resume public testimony on House Bill 34 or Senate File 34. Senate File 34 on unmanned
sorry,
drone
can we already have it paused?
When you come up to speak.
Yes, Sean.
Can you just go back to the beginning there a second and pause it when it's showing the crowd?
Oh yeah.
So we're going to resume public.
This is one of my other issues with this kind of thing. It's like there's more of them than the people that are attending the meeting, but yet they're going to potentially set rules that thousands of people are going to have to follow.
Right.
How does that work?
It is crazy, but they did take people on Zoom, and I wish that I had an opportunity to just pop in, because all these well thought out comments from people in the drone community. I would have gotten on there and said, so you wanted to have a bill? You put a bill where you could shoot down drones, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to tell you that anybody that would do that is clearly a butt nut. I yield my time.
Yeah.
And then that would be it. I'd be out.
I think all you'd have to say to them is it's trespass, and it's aerial. It's in the title, people. Aerial trespass. Trespass in the air. Trespass.
Well,
right.
You'll see these people make those points.
House Bill 34 or Senate File 34. Senate File 34 on unmanned.
He said center file.
Drone aircraft. When you come up to speak, press the button until the little green light comes on. Introduce yourself. If you're representing an agency or an organization, tell us what organization or agency that is. If you're representing yourself, please tell us where in this great state you reside, and then briefly tell us what we need to hear. We also have several witnesses waiting to testify in the Zoom world.
My name is Matt Pignataro. I live in Laramie County, and I'm self-employed as a freelance videographer. My background is relevant to my testimony. I retired from the Air Force in 2019 after 24 years of service as a security forces officer. I have a master's degree in unmanned systems from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, where my thesis was a case study on public safety and successful first responder drone programs. I've been flying drones professionally since deploying to Afghanistan in 2009 and stayed fully engaged with the military small UAS community as one of the Air Force's subject matter experts for the remainder of my career. Just prior to my retirement, I was stationed at F.E. Warren. I oversaw counter UAS testing, training, equipment fielding, and policy to protect the nation's ICBM fleet, including the 19 launch facilities here in Wyoming. I have well over 1,000 flight hours on drones of all shapes and sizes. Today, I still fly drones for both business and pleasure. So regarding the aerial trespass bill, I do not support it as currently written. I would urge the committee to draft a bill that is less ambiguous, does not interfere with legitimate official and commercial flight operations, and is more easily enforceable. Additionally, the committee should consider whether the behavior the bill seeks to curb isn't already covered under other Wyoming statutes, such as 62506, the stalking statute. However, rather than just poke holes in the bill, I'd rather offer some suggestions for improvement and moving forward. So the first of those is quantify and define what substantial interference with a landowner's enjoyment of their land is, so that law enforcement officers can accurately determine if a violation occurred.
Let me pause it there. It's very subjective, the wording of the bill, that drones interfere with the enjoyment of my land. That is so subjective.
We have something similar here where local authorities, local councils, so essentially cities are starting to call drones a nuisance, and they're trying to put drone use under their powers to basically enforce nuisances like vagrancy and that type of thing. They're trying to throw us in with that, and we are fighting that here in the UK as well, actually. However, I do like that the first speaker you've chosen here is basically Drone Batman.
He really is.
In court where they'll read out like a 5-paragraph thing of so why is this witness an expert, please? Well, XYZ. This dude is literally Drone Batman. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's pretty good. That's let's continue.
The second, add some sort of mental culpability standard to the bill. Perhaps A person is guilty of trespass by small unmanned aircraft that the person intentionally causes. This would prevent criminally charging someone whose drone or RC airplane got away from them due to wind or something and flew over the neighbor's fence. Third, add the list of first responder and official exemptions from the Prohibiting Drones Over Penal Institutions bill contained in Senate File 32. Without these exemptions and a clarification of what substantial interference with enjoyment is, this bill would criminalize all official state, local, federal, and emergency response drone operations. Fourth, add language protecting legitimate commercial operations conducted by current holders of FAA remote pilot licenses. This is the license that all commercial drone pilots are required to have by 14 CFR Part 107 to have on their person at all times while flying for commercial purposes. Possession of this license, coupled with the totality of the circumstances, would be an excellent litmus test for law enforcement to determine criminal intent. Lastly, the elephant in the room, which pertains to clearly defining the nebulous standard of immediate reaches of airspace. I'd urge the committee to conduct further research into federal preemption laws which attempt to restrict airspace under 49 USC 40103, sovereignty and use of airspace. Perhaps involve the Wyoming Aeronautics Commission to help craft a bill that balances Wyoming landowner desires with federal aviation regulations. Mr. Chairman, I thank you and the committee members for your time and allowing me to speak.
Do these drones have any identifying markings on them, like tail numbers that we see on other commercial aircraft?
So all drones are required by federal aviation.
How can you draft a bill without knowing this?
But this is standard of our government, though, right? Like,
yeah,
they knee jerk first, ask questions later. This is our government. Just in general, these guys just don't have a clue ever.
No,
they just
but they're legislating
and ask questions
they're
later.
Legislating on, like you said, knee jerk on emotions. And you can tell in their faces, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Well, and the whole fact that he thinks that a tail number could be on a drone just means that he's never seen a consumer drone. Yeah, he has no idea. And in actual fact, I think one of the things they should do, I don't know if someone does in the meeting, is just hold up a Mini 3 or something and saying, this is what you're worried about, people. This little 249 gram thing is what you're worried about. You won't even know it's over your house. Stop panicking.
So what do they want us to do? Have a light that blinks and like if you're flying over this house, it's like fucking Uber. Oh, that's my drone. That's my drone. See that color? It matches the app. That's my drone. So that's how you can identify this drone should be here because the color matches what's on my phone. Get out of here.
To their credit, they did invite experts in about things. Apparently, clearly they know not a lot about, and they are getting informed. And later, just a spoiler alert, we're gonna see the absolute crazy, haphazard, cringy way they try to amend the bill so that it's more palatable, and still it failed. But let's continue with this.
Regulations to have an identifying number visible on the exterior of the hull.
Just curious if you know of any existing law that protects critical infrastructure flying drones over.
I can only speak in the context of my former life as a security forces officer. There is all the launch facilities and the Air Force bases and a variety of other things are protected by what is called national defense airspace, which is why if you drive by F.E. Warren, you see the no drone zone signs. That's the citation for that. So that was a special carve out created by the FAA to protect those and give the military some authorities when it came to our counter UAS capabilities.
So my name is Scott Richard. I'm the president of Wyoming Realtor.
Okay, so we have another guy on here, but any thoughts about what he said?
No, I mean, he said, I think it all makes very well sense.
I like Drone Batman. I'm a fan of Drone Batman.
Drone Batman is the hero we all need.
Yeah, he is. All right, let's continue.
Hero we deserve.
And I am concerned with the way the bill is written. To keep it brief, as you suggested, I can support the concept of what Ms. Wilkinson proposed last Wednesday. And again, I want to reference what everybody else is saying, that as a commercial pilot using it for those purposes and carrying a Part 107 license, the people that this bill could let me rephrase that, it could affect unintentionally is what I think most everybody is concerned with. To answer some questions earlier, maybe you put a height limit of 100 feet in that. Again, as a Part 107 licensed or certificate pilot, you're not supposed to exceed 400 feet. Keep in mind too, though, that much like a telephoto lens on a camera, more drones are having that capability of zooming in. They don't.
La 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 la, can't hear. Don't say that. La 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 la. Don't say that, dude.
Don't talk about the M30.
Don't say that, drone. Shut up, Drone Robin.
The M30.
Drone Robin's really. All right. Is this Drone Robin?
This is
okay.
This could be Drone Robin.
Okay, all right.
Necessarily have to be over your property. They could be over their own property and zoom in all the way across multiple areas. The reason I'm concerned with this for my industry and what we do is we use drones for aerial shots and photography for communities and neighborhoods. If we do that and unintentionally fly over somebody's house or at a certain level, 350 feet, give or take, and you're flying over a community to establish a shot, where does that put us? We won't be capable of doing that. And for those that use it for commercial purposes, our work has even been picked up by the Discovery Channel and aired on national television.
He's all over the place.
He's talking
about real estate and then the Discovery Channel. He's
plugging. He's got his little logo on the screen. He's talking about Discovery Channel. You know, Drone Batman went in there and he was all business. He was, this is who I am. This is why you should listen to me. This is why this is complete and utter beeswax.
But he's a typical, if he is a realtor, he's a typical realtor. Any shot they can take to promote themselves,
I mean, it's all about continual marketing. Yeah.
He's probably got napkins in the back with his business card inside the napkins.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, let's continue. So far, my favorite is Drone Batman. I'm Drone Batman. I like that guy.
Thank you very much. On Zoom can hear me.
That's what they're saying. That's what I'm.
Next.
Yeah.
Okay.
I left this in here. I left this little tidbit in here because even House Judiciary meetings can have problems with their live stream.
Any idea what the problem might be? Or?
They're using Wirecast. No, they got Zoom.
Yeah, we're hearing it
Zoom via Wirecast.
Right.
So can anybody hear me now?
Hello.
How about Miss Urbakite? Can you bring her in? Is she still out there? She's not. Grossman.
Got someone tied up.
Oh, okay.
Is there anybody left out there?
Compelling. This is riveting.
Yeah, this is why some chairmen do not allow Zoom participation in their committee meetings.
Yep.
Allie Grossman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
That's wonderful. Terrific. So we've heard lots of testimony already about vagueness and FAA regulations and federal preemption and necessity of various industries. Do you have something different to tell us this morning?
That was kind of douchey of him to say, like, you know what I mean?
Like he's fishing for an ulterior response, you know?
Right,
He's fishing at this point.
Don't keep repeating the same thing.
Can you not rub our faces in it, please?
Right. Well, we heard it all. Don't say the same thing as the other guy.
And if so, could you tell us briefly?
I believe I do. And and thank you, Chairman Washut and members of the committee. I am a Laramie-based video producer who is studying for my FAA Part 107 license. For me, and I did send you an email, so I'll try to skip through it on what has not been addressed this morning. For me, the bill is problematic and I am opposed to it. Wyoming tourism is such a vital part of our economy, and our vistas would not be possible to shoot unless we were to fly over some private land space. Already there are restrictions in place. We are not allowed to fly over wildlife areas or military areas, and our maps do not tell us what is private or public land for the most part. In residential and populated areas, such as my neighborhood, I'm practicing right now. I've been a professional for over 20 years, and so I am just now entering the drone industry. I would not be able to practice in my front yard because houses are approximately 200 feet away from where I would be practicing, and I need to take off and land somewhere. Others have mentioned.
So this is someone who's been a photographer and is integrating drones into their tool bag.
Right.
And she needs to practice, which is good. You should absolutely do that. She's studying for her 107.
Yeah.
And she wants to do things right. But what is right? What, you know, there's so much conflicting information all the time. It can be confusing.
But she's right about the fact that when you look at a map, you look at a sectional chart, you look at how we interpret airspace, the airspace does not give a shit about the land beneath it because the FAA governs the air, not the land beneath it, with the exception of critical infrastructure, permanent TFRs like we have Disney here, military airspaces, or VIP movement. Those are the areas in which the FAA protects the things that needs to protect. Everything else is not relevant for laws like this. I mean, if somebody's going to, that's, you know, it's so stupid, like these laws, how they even come up, because it's like saying if a criminal is going to use something illegally or wrongfully or nefariously, they will do it no matter what. And those should always be the exception. The problem is that these lawmakers tend to pounce on the exceptions that occur, not the rules. And
well, you're right.
It's repetitive.
It's just like, you know, on vending machines, they have that sticker of the stick figure pulling the vending machine on himself.
Right.
That's for the 1 in a million dumbass who's going to do it, but they have to legally cover themselves. And we told you not to do it. Yeah.
Growing up, my brother did kick open a gumball machine with a set of flip-flops, and we stole all the quarters out of the Walmart.
Uh-huh.
So we were that 1 in a million,
right?
Which our mother did make. My mother did make us confess to the manager and pay that money back.
But Ken, that said, Ken, if there was a stick figure sticker on there that instructed you not to do it, wouldn't you have done it anyway?
I think so. At the time, we were enterprising young youth, and you know, there was an opportunity, and we exploited a flaw in the gumball system. So I digress.
System.
I think it's important as well, where it almost sounds like she's getting a little bit confused. She's getting a little bit sort of, you know, she's not making her points particularly clearly. But again, this is one of my problems with this kind of, and this is government all over the world, that this is supposedly some kind of, you know, forum to be able to get your point across. But the dude running it, the chairman, has basically railroaded her into keeping her points to what hasn't been discussed. So she's come along, she's sent an email, she's clearly thought about it, she's someone studying for a 107, etc. And she, you know, so she's not even getting her voice across now, which is, again, I find even that part of it frustrating, that just because it's the same message, it doesn't mean that she shouldn't be allowed to repeat it.
That's exactly right.
Actually, it emphasizes the fact that you are completely and utterly wrong, and you're trying, he's desperately trying to mold things to somehow fit what he wants to happen, and that's really poor governance.
Yeah,
what do they call that when they do that? When you're leading. I forgot what they call that. You're prompting. You're prompting.
Yeah,
you're basically prompting a response.
Witness, they would call it.
You're leading a witness.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
But hats off to all these people that took the time to do this. They care enough about our industry and community to do this for all of our benefits. And speaking of someone who's in our corner, the next person is our buddy Vic Moss.
Such as I am.
Plenty of people have reached out and said something about the vagueness of the rules. I get that. The only thing I'd like to add to that is if these people who work with the rules every day, including y'all, thank you very much for providing this, are confused about this, what's going to happen when a law enforcement officer comes on scene. Odds are he's going to say, or she is going to say, here's the citation. I'm going to let the prosecutor and judge figure this out. And honestly, I don't blame them. I've actually worked with police departments here in Denver, training on this very subject. And it's not fair to them to really put this in their lap. They've got enough to worry about already, and they don't need to worry about the vagueness and the minutia of what this bill will present to them. I do want to address one concern I had with the testimony from Wednesday for Mr. Janeska. As you may remember, he is the director of KCPR, Casper Airport. And he mentioned that the FAA looks for the local entities to control certain aspects. And while it may be true of the navigational impediments, it's not in the case of UAS incursions. What the FAA asks locals to do is gather information, and there is there are guidelines put out called the Law Enforcement Assistance Program, and I'd be more than happy to hook anybody up in this panel with our current LEAP officer, LEAP agent. But they asked them, you guys need to do this and then give it to us and we'll make the decision from there. There is very specific language about where we can fly our drones in controlled airspace. And also it's illegal for us to interfere with manned aircraft. So if you want to get the FAA involved in a real big hurry, you're in an airport and you call them and say, look, we got people flying in our approaches. They'll jump all over that real fast. They will not show up in the event, obviously, because they're not there, but neither will law enforcement, to be quite honest. By the time they get there, the drone's gone. There's been the mention of the 500-foot level, which is inaccurate, which I get. I understand that. It's a great example of if it's on the internet, it must be true. That is wrong. We do have, basically we have the public right of transit for the navigable airspace, and drones do fly in navigable airspace. And the best way I can illustrate the fact that people are wrong when they say that below 500 feet is not controlled by the FAA is you can buy or build a small little gyrocopter in your backyard and fly it yourself. Try flying that all over the city and stay below 500 feet and think the FAA won't show up at your door. So in addition to your neighbors and the police department trying to beat down your front door, the FAA will be right there with them. I can promise you that. Remote ID was mentioned. It will come into effect in any registered aircraft in the NAS, so the NAS, National Airspace System, must transmit remote ID. And that will be as of September 16th of this year. 4 of the 10 drones I fly are already registered. And I also want to mention that it was very disturbing to hear the comment from your Senate colleague in the chamber where he publicly suggested shooting down drones. I've dealt with people who've had their drones shot down. Not only is it illegal, as mentioned, but it's a horrible idea. Our drones are powered by lithium polymer batteries, LiPo batteries. And if you fracture a LiPo battery, you're pretty much going to have an instantaneous self-fulfilling fire. And if you don't believe me on that, go to YouTube and look up LiPo fire or read about a gentleman who shot down a sheriff's drone in Florida last year. When the cops did show up to his house, they had two things to do. One, they had to arrest the guy because he was a felon with a gun. And 2, they had to put the fire out on top of his shed. Luckily, the drone landed on his shed on fire because he shot at it and hit the battery and it caught fire. He was also, earlier this year, was indicted by a federal grand jury under 18 U.S.C. 32. So with that, I'm open to questions. And again, appreciate the ability to do this remotely since I live in Denver and actually have to go fly out at the airport this afternoon.
Representative Shestak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try and be brief, but I think this is an important point. Mr. Meyer, you are familiar with FAA regulations, obviously, because of your job. Understanding of the FAA regulations is that the general rule is 500 feet, but there's exceptions for congested areas or sparsely populated areas. And the sparsely populated area, you can go below 500 feet. Is that a correct understanding of the regulations?
That's for manned aircraft. That's for traditional aircraft. Drones fly under 107, not 91 or 61.
How about that bit of confusion there?
Wow.
There's a lot of conflation with manned aircraft and drone stuff too happening a lot.
That is wild that they got those two things twisted like that.
Yeah. Vic goes on.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So for a manned aircraft can go as low as it wants in a sparsely so the crop dusters are not violating.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Right. Yeah. So does that suggest that the FAA rules would preempt this statute?
100%.
If we were,
there's court cases. Yeah, there's court cases to prove it, including Singer v. Newton, Mass, which I was one of the witnesses for Dr. Singer in that case.
So in a sparsely populated area, this statute that we're contemplating would not have any effect. It would be preempted by FAA rules.
It would in any area because we don't fly under the 500-foot rule because that is for manned aircraft. We fly under Part 107, which is unmanned.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So clearly they don't do a lot of research before drafting a bill. Now I have a bit of video here. This is just a little bit more. This is where they try desperately to amend it so it sounds right, and you will see in real time you can see the cogs spinning. And this one dude who's a lawyer, clearly, and he's like, remove this word, put this word, remove that sentence. It's really fascinating to see. And this is how, no doubt, all bills at the state level certainly happen. So this is fascinating to see. And then in the end, they will strike this down. But check this out.
I've been trying to look for ways to amend this in a way that I think we would feel comfortable with and other folks would. And I think it would be incredibly difficult to move it out of kind of this trespass issue to the action, which I think is what a lot of people would be more comfortable with. So I'm not sure. I haven't found a way to amend it to do that. So I don't know that, and I don't know if we can. And certainly we can't do it once this bill leaves committee. So that's just my thoughts on it. I think we might have to come back at this next year, unfortunately.
Oh,
Representative Shestak. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my colleague on the other side of the dais here that this is. I know it was an interim bill from last year. I understand it was worked over the summer. I still don't think it's ready for prime time. I think there's just way too many questions about this. We may have to take another run at it. I also have. I saw the one proposed amendment that was handed out, which improves the bill. But still doesn't get me over to saying we ought to do it. I think there's the preemption question we just came up with. I need to study that some more.
And by the way, keep in mind, they're not voting yes on it because they're defending us. They're voting no on it because they know it's going to be a big legal headache, and they're not in our corner.
They don't have a bulletproof. They don't have it to where it's airtight.
Right.
To where it won't get struck down outside of it after it leaves them.
Right. If it did become law, then it would just be a nightmare for them. They'd have full court dockets all the time. But listen as this continues. It's fascinating.
I'm very concerned about the bill, and I'm personally not ready to vote for it. I would prefer to study it some more. Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I agree with both colleagues that just spoke.
Anyone else? Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to propose the amendments.
Here comes the amendments. This is great.
Let's move the amendment. Let's hear what you have to say. Representative Crago.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So line 12, page 1. I'm going to add a clause at the beginning of the sentence. So before a person, I wanted to say, unless the small unmanned aircraft is being used for a valid commercial or governmental purpose, comma. Line 14. Take out the words the immediate reaches of.
Yeah.
And I'll explain what I'm doing when we get done.
Oh, I hope you do.
Line 15, after the word landowner, put a period.
Mm-hmm.
And then insert the language and the entry and the entry substantially interferes with the landowner's or his authorized occupant's use and enjoyment of the land, period.
Subjective.
Strike that onto page 2. The rest remains the same.
Uh-huh.
There a second to the amendment? Second by Oakley. Discussion on the amendment. Representative Crago.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we heard lots of testimony about we need to do a carve out for government and commercial. So that's what the initial clause does. So if you're doing filming, if you're doing GIS, government stuff, you wouldn't be subject to this. This is to try to get to the private operators.
Okay, so if you're filming, I think everybody's filming, right?
What?
Your thoughts, Ken?
Define commercial, though. Define commercial.
Right. He basically means any dude with a drone. So
if you have a 107, you're flying. You can fly. You can say you are flying commercially. You don't have to be paid for that. You can say, well, I've got my 107. I am flying commercially.
Yes.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Could you imagine trying to enforce that?
It would still be a show.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to amend it.
That I think the intent of the bill was for. Then the rest of the language I took out was to get rid of the vagueness, which, by the way, we put in to protect people. That was the whole purpose of that language.
It wasn't there to protect us people.
Could you imagine being this guy's wife and just listening to his vows, he's like, well, I want to change with till death do our part. We're going to put a period here and just put death.
Right.
I mean,
it's like, come on.
You also have to say that if you lived close, if you lived in this city, in this area where these people are in charge, so they've brought this initially last year, they brought it back this year, and then they're talking about bringing it in again next year once they've had another run at it. So they're just going to keep going at it until they can find a way of bringing this in. And that to me just sounds like a flagrant waste of public money. Surely, and I know the same in the UK, we've got there are some lovely parts of the country where actually crime rate isn't too high, and but surely there are other things that this city probably need to be focusing on and spending the money that these meetings are costing, and the research and the lawyers, and surely there's better things for them to do.
No doubt they're trying to keep the large landowners in their district happy. Because the large landowners are most likely the large business owners, and they're the ones with the loudest voice in these political.
I think we actually need to pass Craigo a drone and ask him where the drone hurt him.
Yeah, show us on the show us on the doll
on this chart where the drone touched you.
Show us on the doll. Yeah. All right, let's continue with this because it gets really good.
It has to be intentional, right? That was the idea, so that it has to be. It's very hard for law enforcement to prove this case. We wanted to put that burden on law enforcement, but I understand the vagueness argument, so we can take that language out so that it's just clear. If you fly into somebody's backyard, it's a trespass, unless you're doing it for a commercial or governmental purpose.
Boom, we're covered, 107 guys. It's crazy.
And so that's why I'm proposing the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion on the amendment?
He was so chuffed with himself.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the initial insertion on line 12. I do not appreciate the deletion of the language on lines 15, 16, and onto page 2, because I do think that does protect people, and that's what it was put in for. I agree that it does protect people, and I think the standard for liability here needs to be higher than the standard for a trespass. There is another section of Wyoming statute, which I quoted on Wednesday, that provides for civil liability, which has a lower standard. This reduces that to the civil standard, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's going to create more prosecutions, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think we need to protect. There's so many ways that this, if you delete that language, there's so many more ways that somebody could inadvertently violate the statute without any intention and be prosecuted because we've taken out the limiting language. So I am very much opposed to the second part of your amendment.
Line 12, page 1. Add at the beginning of the sentence a clause that says, unless the small and unmanned aircraft is being used for a valid commercial or governmental purpose, comma.
Yeah, that comma.
And then it will
important.
go on to say a person is guilty of trespass by small unmanned aircraft. And then on line 14, we would remove the words the immediate reaches of. So remove 4 words, strike those. Line 15, after the word landowner, insert a period. Strike the remainder of line 15, all of line 16, and on page 2, strike through the word land on line 1.
This assumes that all drone operators are filming your daughter in her bikini in your backyard or whatever. It's really vilifying of all drone operators. And
yeah, it's sort of ridiculous, to be completely honest.
It is. Well, here comes the vote.
Maybe. Okay, committee, we all have that amendment clear. All in favor of Representative Craigo's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.
No.
That amendment has failed. Back on the bill. Senator File 34.
Representative Craigo.
Aye.
Representative Chestick.
No.
Representative Harrelson. Representative Jennings. Representative Nemec. Representative Oakley,
Aye.
Representative Provenza,
No.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
No.
Chairman Washut.
No.
We have a total of 2 ayes and 7 noes.
And it kind of peters out from there. So that's good, but this kind of thing is happening continuously. And this could set some really bad precedent if it goes through.
Yeah, as I said, we're having the same thing here in the UK, where a very I won't go into the detail because it will bore your US audience completely, but with PSPOs, where the nuisance thing is being used, and we're having to fight it on every single count. And one of the benchmarks to add drones to be a local nuisance is that you have to have evidence, of course. And we challenged one local authority to show their evidence through a freedom of information request. And the evidence they provided was that one of their employees saw someone flying a drone in high wind at the park one day, and another one saw a drone crash into a tree. That's the evidence that drones are a nuisance.
Good enough.
Yeah. Well,
clearly, you know, physical harm was about to happen to everybody in those parks. Frankly, it's clearly drones are a nuisance.
Well, trees are dicks all over the world. Get your trees are dicks t-shirt now. Link in the description. Yeah, trees are dicks. So just a final thought there. Our buddy Ryan LaTourette, he's got his email and links in the description. Reach out to Vic Moss or anyone else. You have any questions? But don't be scared about this. But we still have some power in guiding this. I have to believe that. So, you know, it happens on the local level. I think. And this is something else from Ryan. He says the next big challenge to alert everyone is Washington D.C. Based on a Florida law that is now fully in effect as of January 1st. Florida has banned the use of several drone manufacturers by any government agency, which can also mean drones used by government contractors.
Called the blue UAS list. That's something we've been battling for a while. We knew it was going to happen. And the problem was this is the issue with these rules and these problems is a lot of people, even government agencies, law enforcement, they are, and much of the pilots that fly drones now, the problem is we're way too reactive. We're way too reactive, and we're not doing enough proactively to deter these types of things happening. And how do you become proactive to prevent these types of laws happening is with education and the way you conduct yourself as a pilot just every day. Everybody does their own part. When something stupid happens and people are like, oh, that's going to hurt law. No, it doesn't change the law, but it changes people's perceptions of the people that operate these aircraft. So what we can do is we need to be more proactive with our lawmakers. If you have an in somewhere, we need to be proactive. We need to educate them on how these things do good more than they do bad. But it's all about education. It's all about being proactive. We no longer have the luxury to wait until things like this happen, because every time one of these happen, we lose a little bit more and a little bit more. And eventually what's going to happen is instead of things like this getting struck down, they will be approved, because we're losing our grip a little bit more each time, every time it happens.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, you know, if you love this hobby, and I know everybody watching does, try to do what you can to be a good ambassador, get involved, and make change happen for good, for us, for everyone. But until this all shakes out, I have to keep an optimistic view on things, because flying drones it's just too much fun. It's too awesome. I know I'm not going to give it up, no matter how many hoops I have to jump or fly through. I know you guys aren't either. So this is, I mean, it's exciting times. Certainly. We don't know how things are all going to shake out. But in the meantime, you know, what was a growing community just a year ago is kind of, I'm getting the feeling that there's a lot of people doing a wait and see before they buy a drone or get into it, or, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of,
I think you're right.
Stagnant right now, a little bit.
Yeah. I think the landscape is changing completely because we've also got, the non-hobbyist drone users now that will buy a mini drone like they buy a mobile phone, and they don't count themselves as being part of the hobby. And I think we've got a growing number of users like that. And yeah, I think the to be fair, I think that there is a momentum now behind things like the work that Vic and Ryan does, etc., that people are actually aware of it, and we are seeing more and more people stepping forward. It was previously that actually these laws would come in and we'd all be talking about it 6 months after. Now we are starting to talk about it when these bills are put forward, and we are starting to get more organised as far as how to fight them. Which is why if you see people like Vic Moss, you see people like Ryan talking on social media, talking on Facebook groups, saying, "Hey, anyone in this area, anyone in this state, we've got this problem. Come do something." It's really important to engage. Really important to engage with your local politicians, with the area where it's happening in. Just get involved and send emails. Even a single email. If 20,000 people send an email to one of these cities complaining about what they're doing, they would not be able to just brush that aside. Basically, they would have to sit up and take notice of that.
I agree.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to be said. We could have a 5-hour stream on this, but thank you guys for your input. We should probably mention remotepilot101.com. Isn't it a great place?
Great place.
It is a great place. Tell us about your place, Jason.
So Remote Pilot 101, no one has prepared more Part 107 pilots than us. And you'll be pleased, those of you who are current customers now, you're going to be experiencing version 3 and a brand new learning management system in about 2 weeks. So the best just keeps on getting better. RemotePilot101.com. Use promo code Heron18, which, by the way, Ken, I can't brag on you enough. When we search promo codes, you know me, I'm all about our marketing and everything else. Heron18 is the most used promo code. Your people listen to you, Ken.
Yay! Thank you, people. I appreciate that. And you've been very busy updating the lessons too, because
there's not every video has gotten a facelift. There's 76 videos in there. Every single one has gotten a facelift. The course has gone from 9 hours to almost 12 hours now. There's just so much new content. We're always trying to innovate, push new content. Now with all the recurrent tests changing so much, we're like, wow, we just launched our new course. We need to fix it now. So we're back to that. I was just reviewing some of the stuff our writers sent over earlier for some of the content, and there's some more great stuff coming out here soon as well.
And you take actual questions that test takers give you. And kind of incorporate those in the quizzes too, right? So they're actual FAA questions.
We have a ton of data on that, no doubt. So yeah, and I always share. You know this, Ken. I call them the boot camps at the end, where I share. This is a question you're going to see on your knowledge test. Let's not memorize it. Let's understand the why behind it. But just to prepare them for the knowledge test. You know this though, Ken. I want you to be safe in the real world. My mission isn't just to pass a test. I want you safe when you're out there flying FPV, whatever it is, so you can be a light and be a mentor to everybody else that's out there wondering about what this new drone space is. Even though it's not that new, but to many it is so new. We have to be ambassadors to that.
You're a shining star, Jason. A shining star. Awesome.